The wheel weaves as the wheel wills, and we are only the thread of the pattern. Robert Jordan, The Great Hunt, Book 2 of the Wheel of Time series. This is AMI Audiobook Review. I'm your host, Jacob Shymanski. The Wheel of Time is a massive, epic fantasy series by American author Robert Jordan. Amazon adapted it to a television series to mixed reviews, although the third season just wrapped up as we're recording this, and the reviews are pretty good. So the TV show's seen a clear upward trajectory in terms of quality, which is really exciting for Wheel of Time fans. One of those fans is a regular contributor, Sara Hillis. How's it going, Sara?
Pretty good.
I'm also a big fan of The Wheel of Time. I started reading it during the pandemic. I've read 8 of the 14 books. Each of those books is over 20 hours long. So normally I would feel bad about not reading the entire series before judging it. I've read 3 digits worth of hours of audiobooks. And so I feel entitled to have an opinion about this friggin' thing. I've invested so much time, and I know you've gotten decently far into the series as well. Like, what's your background with the series?
First of all, you're sugarcoating the time commitment here. I believe most of them are either 30 hours and up.
Oh my!
Just so you know.
You're right, actually. The 8th one is one of the shorter ones, and you're right. I think it's just under 30 hours.
Okay.
They are absurdly long books, which is part of what makes it difficult to adapt. But they are very, very popular books. They've been around since the 90s. But maybe you can give us a bit of the history, Sara.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm just heading into the 5th book, so I'm still a bit of a newbie, or a noob. I don't know what the right thing is to say anymore, because I'm an oldie. But so I never got into them until 2022, when someone said she was reading the first book, and I actually didn't know that's what it was about. She said, I'm reading this book called The Eye of the World, and she might have mentioned Robert Jordan's name, so then I knew. But I've never read these Wheel of Time things. What are they like? And there were these new narrations, or this one anyway, by Rosamund Pike. That's how you say her name, Rosamund. And because she is this series, one of the leads in the series. So
in the TV series, she's one of the main actresses.
Yeah. So okay. So the series, I believe, started publishing in 90 or 91. The actual print series. And it's like 14 books long, including a prequel. And it basically kept going until 2013. So almost every year there's a book, right? Pretty much. Maybe not quite. Not every year, because of course Robert Jordan passed away, and then we had Brandon Sanderson to finish things off. Which I'm told he did very well, so that's good. He's a great fantasy author, so I wouldn't put it past him to get into the world and finish it. But it's a sprawling thing. You can kind of start by comparing it to typical fantasy stuff, like boy from small town realizes he's caught up in big events, and he has friends along with him from the small town.
The first book is very Lord of the Rings-esque.
Yeah.
It's almost a ripoff.
Monsters come, and I would challenge that assumption, but monsters come and attack the village, and also this mysterious woman shows up and takes these people on an adventure, which turns out to be less adventurous than they wanted. It turns out to be quite dark in the end, as things move on. And the interesting part about these books is because there's so many of them, you can really get into the psychology of the boy in the prophecy, as it were, all of the characters that are involved in this prophecy. But Rand is the one we see, and most of the time he's like trying to run away from everything. He doesn't want people to tell him what to do. He doesn't want, like, he's kind of an annoying guy in many ways. Like,
he is.
Can't you just be the hero we all want? But he's not going to do that, right? He's always going to be a pot stirrer. I'm not going to do what you say. I'm going to go somewhere else. And of course, every time he does it, of course, it advances everything he thought he didn't want to advance. Right.
Yeah, Rand al'Thor is ostensibly the main character, although it's not necessarily reflected in the page count. Like, I think some characters actually do get higher page counts
Yeah.
than he does. But he's the chosen one, essentially. This book is
Yeah.
a giant chosen one trope.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why he is kind of an annoying character is that he's just a boy. He's a boy who doesn't handle the pressure, the weight of being the chosen one. And that psychology is explored immaculately. He goes through different phases where at first he doesn't really know what's going on, and then he's terrified of his power. And then he kind of becomes power hungry, and then just kind
Yeah.
of becomes insane, and then embraces his power, goes back to being insane. Like goes through different phases, but
Yeah.
it's understandable because the world is on his shoulders in as close to literally as possible.
Yeah. And I think I'm joking that he's annoying,
He is
but
annoying. I agree with
he
you. He
isn't.
is annoying.
But actually, it's really cool that Robert Jordan has done this for this character, because so many chosen ones are just like, yes, I will wield the sword Excalibur and fight against my foes. Although that's not even really, Arthur's a bit complicated too. But
Hmm.
but yeah, so it's this sprawling, amazing epic, based in this world that is kind of governed by cyclical history, you could say. Um, so this Rand is actually a reincarnation of a former very powerful person called the Dragon. That's what they call him. Luz Theron Telamon. That's the very, like, one of the very first words in the book in the whole series is Luz Theron Telamon was walking through the palace or something, right?
Hmm.
So I'm not I'm not giving anything away. So you, as the books go on and they get more and more confusing, and I'm only just starting book 5 and I'm already confused, but in a good way. You see the cyclical patterns moving around, and the every little city and state has its little cultural differences. It's I think the world building is pretty amazing in many ways. Because
I think,
sometimes you can hear a lot of cool names in a fantasy book, but then there's nothing much behind it, right? And yeah,
and
I
this
don't know.
book is both. It has really cool names and very cool history and world building. But the thing that's unique to me about the world building here is that it's very culture based. It's not like there is a massive amount of different species and races and like variants of
No,
humans. It's just humans of different cultures, of completely different cultures.
yeah,
But as different nations, and there are tons of them, different nations rally around Rand, the chosen one, they have to collaborate and clash because of culture differences. And that stuff is some of the most fascinating to me. There's a lot of
yeah,
diplomacy and politics, which is exacerbated by one of the key traits of the series to me is that people are super petty and emotional. Like,
yeah.
the characters are very, no one is perfect. Their
No,
characters are very, very, very flawed. And there's a lot of infighting, and I would even say melodrama that gets quite interesting. And a
yeah,
lot of the conflict, and this is going to sound weird, especially in 2025, is between men and women, because there's a huge societal rift between the two for very good reasons. Do you want to get into that?
yeah. So there's a group of now women in the current time period called Aes Sedai, who are kind of, let's just call them magical people for the sake of
Like
simplicity.
wizards, like
They're kind
witches.
of wizards, witches, wizards, whatever. They wield this power called the One Power, but the One Power is like yin and yang. So there's two versions of it. It gets very annoying. So Saidar, the the female half is Saidar, and it's pure and great and fine, and they can do cool stuff with it and throw fireballs and, I don't know, tie people up. It's really fun. And then the male half of the power, which men were used to wield in great numbers too, is Saidin, and Saidin has been tainted by this force called the Dark. So here we are with light and dark tropes, and that's, but it's still, it's not simple though. Let me say that, light and dark. So if a man now in the present age wields Saidin, he can go mad because it's full of this darkness, this bad stuff that gets into him, and he freaks out. Anyway, so
They're doomed to go insane, basically.
yeah. So the Aes Sedai, some of the Aes Sedai's job is to kind of find these men and stop them from wielding it. So A, they don't go insane, and B, they don't destroy stuff. Because the prophecy says that the dragon will return, and that because of what Lews Therin did, that's how the Sidene got tainted. It's a really hard thing to describe, but the point is, so if the dragon returns, a lot of these women from Tarvalon, that's their place, want to keep the dragon from coming to his full power. But then some of them know that he has to, because it's the last battle, right? Tarmon Gaidon is the last battle, and he has to be there to fight the dark called Shaitan Balsamon. I'm saying his name. We're not supposed to do that, but so the Aes Sedai seem to serve the light. There are, of course, some that do not, because that's how books work, and you got to have evil people in the midst of the good people. And there's also this weird group of fanatic soldiers called the Children of the Light, who do not like the Aes Sedai. They're like the Witchfinders General of the world. So they think the Aes Sedai are horrible people and should not exist, because then the world will be great if there just aren't these meddling women running around with this power. So it's a lot of different factions. Then you have all the different cultures, as Jacob said. Some who like Aes Sedai, some who do not like Aes Sedai, some who have their own version of channeling, like the Sea Folk do, and the Aiel kind of do, the women of the Aiel. And lots of different, like, who's going to be on top here, who's going to be the leaders, who's going to not be the leaders. Like, there's a couple different huge houses involved, lots of different houses from different cities, and then there's these people called the Forsaken who get mixed up in everything, and who used to be dark Aes Sedai long ago, and they were immortal, and they broke out of their prison and stuff. So they're doing that. And it's a lot of stuff. It's not just light
It's
and
a
dark.
lot.
And
It's a lot. The funniest thing with the Forsaken is it's this group of, I think, 13 or so, like former Aes Sedai that serve the dark, basically. But they hate each other too.
Oh yeah,
that's the funny thing.
Yeah.
It's as if there was this big group of bad guys that all hate each other as well. So yes, they're really powerful, but they're also unbelievably petty, like everyone else in the series. And so everybody, even the bad guys, are fighting each other, which actually ends up being like some of the most fascinating stuff in the series. Now, I know that we've said a lot here, and it sounds like a lot. If you had to really narrow down what the plot of this series is, it's ultimately the entire world gathering around Rand al'Thor, the Chosen One, preparing themselves for the final battle. And the best thing about this series is that it actually concludes in a satisfying way. People praise the way Brandon Sanderson concluded the series after that Robert Jordan passed away. To say that a massive 14-book series actually concludes in a satisfying way is really, really impressive. Because that's a lot of threads to create and then to neatly tie up. It's nice to know that if you're 7 books into a series, that it actually concludes.
Yes. I was grateful to read that myself.
It makes it feel like there's a reason. It makes it feel like there's a reason that you're actually reading it.
Yeah. So on to the audiobooks. We had to talk about them because that's what we're here to talk about. There are there's one full version of the series in audio, read by Michael Kramer and Kate Redding. I never know how to say her last name.
It is funny that there's an audiobook narrator whose last name is Reading.
Yeah. Because that's my cousins are Readings, and they say Reading. So I don't know. But anyway.
Michael Kramer and Kate Reading. They narrate. They were the first narrators for the audiobooks. They're actually a husband and wife duo, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And Robert Jordan was like adamant that there should be audiobooks because he has a family member, I can't remember if it's a cousin or something, that's dyslexic, and this person wanted to read his books, but you could imagine being dyslexic and trying to read a huge novel. That would be very hard. It's hard enough when you're not dyslexic to read a very huge novel in print or braille or whatever. So he really wanted these audiobooks done, and he wanted a male reader and a female reader. So each person's point of view, if it's a male character, the male reads it. If it's a female character, the female reads it. So that's how he wanted it done. And people really seem to generally like them. I think I haven't never read them. I never used them because I'm using Rosamund Pike, who does a very lovely job, I think.
Yeah, that's what I've heard
with all
too.
those there's like poetical prophecies and stuff, and she
Mm.
just reads them very well, and it's great. So and her character voicing is awesome. I mean, there's so many characters in these books. So I mean, I'm sure Kate and Michael did a lovely job as well. I'm
They
not going to
did, yeah.
pass. I'm not going to pass judgment, but
And the neat thing with the way that Michael Kramer and Kate Redding did their narration is that because the books are pretty much split 50-50 from female and male perspectives, Kate does the female ones and Michael does the male ones. So it's pretty much right down the middle. Just
yeah,
really neat.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
So they started in 96, and I think they released like a few in 1996, it looks like. I don't know how they must have started them earlier and then just pumped them out to the libraries. They started being library copies only, and then eventually they went commercial when Books on Tape did that. And then let's see, Books on Tape was bought by Random House, and I think they ended up producing them later on Macmillan Audio. Don't ask me how that occurred, but it did. So they went from 96 to 2013, whenever the series ended, because at one point they started releasing as the book came out, right? The new book. And so that's all complete. Now, Rosamund Pike, of course, being in the TV series, that they did a gimmick where she would narrate the books. And it's not a gimmick because she can do it very well. She's an amazing actress. So she's got 4 books done now. And
Wow.
the problem is, if it's 1 book a year, she's got like 10 more years to do books. And will she do it for 10 years more? The series will not last for 10 years. I'm quite sure they can't do it. They're already truncating a lot of stuff for the TV series to get you where you need to be. But so yeah, she's that's very interesting. That they've got her doing it. I hope she finishes, because if she doesn't, I'll have no choice but to go back to the old ones. And there's just slightly different ways people pronounce things, which I'm gonna be okay with. But I hate changing narrators in
It's
a series.
always hard to
I hate
change
it.
narrators. It's very jarring. It takes like hours to get used to the way they do things differently, right? And Wheel of Time fans are blessed to have 2 fantastic narrations of the series. And as I understand it, the Wheel of Time audiobooks were popular very early on. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's because they were available, thanks to Robert Jordan. But I know a lot of people got their start with the Wheel of Time series through audiobooks. Although fantasy has always been very popular in audiobook format from the start.
Yeah, I think so.
I think if I had to boil down like what it is that makes the Wheel of Time special, is it's very meticulous in its world building and its plot. It's one of the unique things about it is that Robert Jordan was a real planner. He was an architect of an author where he knew exactly where he wanted to go and took extensive notes on how he wanted the plot to go. And so what people will always point out, and this sounds insane, that the Wheel of Time series, a 14-book giant epic, is actually amazing for rereading because there's so much foreshadowing and
Oh yeah.
planning and little hints dropped constantly because he knew where it was going to go. I've read 8 books and I've found out that there are some things that are foreshadowed at and set up in like the prologue of book 2 that end up resolving in the epilogue of book 5.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's so spread out in that way and it's very impressive and it gives you that cozy feeling of being in good hands as you're reading it. And I mean that in the best compliment possible.
Yeah, I mean, there's one character that has weird sort of foresight. Like, she can't see everything all at once, but she'll look at you and she'll see that you have a noose around your neck, and that means you're gonna be hung at some point or
Like
something.
eventually.
And eventually she doesn't know when, and she knows she probably can't stop it, but she just sort of sees all this, and I don't know where she's going to end up, because I feel like I would just go crazy if I kept having to have these visions. But and then so like 7 books later you might go, oh, that's what she saw, that like in book 3 or something, like it is quite amazingly well planned out. And the thing about it is, it just, like, to the point where it says, oh, the gleeman, or he's like a traveling juggler and musician guy, the gleeman played the Song of the Willows, which in this land was actually called the Song of whatever else. He developed all these different names of things. Like, it's the same tune, but in 2 different lands, it has 2 different titles. And like, it's just so, I mean, I just eat all this stuff up. I love that kind of meticulous world building.
The TV series has had a rough start. Season 1 could be described as a bit of a disaster, in large part because of the pandemic really screwed up their filming. And it showed. The editing was goofy because they had to splice in scenes that they basically like weren't able to film properly. Like, it was a complete gong show. Season 2 was better. Season 3, pretty damn good. Like, what have your thoughts been so far?
So I forgave season 1 mostly because I had just read the book, and then I watched it. Like, I read the book kind of so I could watch season 1, because I don't like to watch a TV series based on a book unless I've at least read the first book. It's my quirk. So I sort of forgave it. I didn't understand. There was a character that sort of left in a funny way. And I didn't understand why, but I learned just this year that the actor actually he couldn't be on the series anymore for whatever reason. So that's why they did it. And then they brought the character back with a really good other actor. I think he's pretty good. So
he's awesome.
Yeah, I like him a lot. So yeah, I honestly haven't watched season 1 for so long that I don't know if I noticed the craziness. They tried to introduce like 700 storylines, which are sort of TV series storylines. They're not really book storylines.
It was bad. They did not follow the book like very closely at all. It was complete nonsense. Like, season 1 was terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like you had all these things that don't get introduced till book 2, and then they get introduced like you're already in a place where you're not in until book 2 or book 3. Like, there's a lot of weird things that they did that didn't make any sense at all. Like,
they both condense the book, remove a bunch of stuff, but at the same time counterintuitively add a bunch of show specific stuff that just adds nothing, and it's like the worst part of the show.
Season
2 is garbage.
Again was like that. Again, stupid adding, stupid sort of let's dumb the book down because we don't need to do portal stones. We'll do something else to make Matt remember a bunch of stuff. And then someone gives him like mushroom tea or something, and he's like, "Ooh, I'm going to trip out." I'm like, Anyway, and season 3, which actually does book 4, which I understand. I feel like book 3 was a weird little plot point. Like, oh, he grabbed a magical thing, and then anyway, so then he doesn't use it much in book 4, really. So they did book 4 for season 3, and they did it really nicely. It was still showish. The show, they kill people off that I'm really annoyed about. I'm so mad. Some of the killings off are like, what the heck? No, especially one particular kill off. Like, he's too cool and you just killed him off. He's the one non-human in the book.
I think they were smarter about the changes that they made in season 3.
They were.
Which is impressive to say, because one of the changes that they made is very significant. They practically, and I can't believe they did this, they almost like swap the order of books 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Where instead they do most of book 4, and it seems like season 4 is going to be the conclusion of book 3.
Yeah, they're going to head off to Tyr in the
and it somehow makes sense. Yeah. It's actually very impressive the way they did that. Yeah. And the one thing that got a lot of news was that they did a scene. It was an entire chapter in book 4. The Pillars of Viridian, which was a massive chapter. It's like one of the biggest chapters in the series. And how
They
do you
did it
even
as a
describe
whole
this thing?
episode
They
for one thing.
basically they did
a
one
whole
chapter
episode.
as a whole episode,
And
and it's the best. It was one of the most memorable chapters in the book series that everybody said, how the hell are they going to do this? And they did it flawlessly. It was the best episode in
yeah,
the TV series so
sort of
far. And I think it
goes.
really brought everyone's expectations of the show so much higher. Like, wow, okay, they can really pull this off. Like, I'm excited now. It was a big turning
Again,
point.
it's not totally the same as in the book, but it's mostly the right thing. Like Rand goes on the journey he's supposed to go on, which is great. And he's like going back in time and learning about where he came from, where the Aiel people that he's with came from, and they did it in such a great way. Like I wanted to cry. Like, oh yeah, that's so awesome. Especially because I just read that book too before watching this show. So, yeah.
Basically the whole scene is Rand learns the history of the Aiel, which is this culture that he's very deeply tied into. But he does so by seeing the stories of his ancestors in reverse chronological order.
Yeah.
Which is really confusing, but the show made it extremely clear. And it was very powerful because it revealed so many of the contradictions around the Aiel culture. It introduced so much of the history of the Aes Sedai, the dragon, the Karakarn, Rand al'Thor himself. It did so much in one episode in such a clear way. Just a masterclass in writing and adaptation.
Yeah. So if you get a chance, you can watch the crazy other seasons. I mean, you should watch them. And then watch the third season, because the third season won't make sense.
Yeah, that's right. It's kind of worth it. It's fun. It's kind of janky and cheesy. The first two seasons, I mean, but third season was a huge step up, which makes me really excited. That said, Sarah, there is no season 4 confirmed yet. They have not announced the confirmation yet. So cross your fingers for that. It was really fun. I can't finish this conversation without saying the single best moment in fiction I've ever read is in the conclusion of book 6, The Lord of Chaos in the Wheel of Time. So keep reading. And just for that, I encourage people to read The Wheel of Time. Sarah, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That was Sarah Hillis, regular contributor. We were talking about the Wheel of Time book series by Robert Jordan and the Amazon TV show. AMI Audio Book Review airs at 1 p.m. Eastern weekends on AMI Audio and repeats every 6 hours. We're also available as a podcast, and that includes YouTube. You can leave us feedback at audiobookreview@ami.ca. That's audiobookreview@ami.ca. You can also follow us on Instagram at AMI Audiobook Review. That's at AMI Audiobook Review. I'm Jacob Shymanski. Happy listening.